This is Keys to the Shop, episode 240. Today we're talking about what to do before you build your bar. Well, hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Keys to the Shop, where we give you insights, inspiration, and the tools you need to grow as a coffee service professional. My name is Chris DiFiorio. I'm your host for the show, and I am so glad to have you along today. If you haven't done so yet, please subscribe to Keys to the Shop and also leave a rating or review. If you've been helped by the show, if you've been inspired, if it's helped you in your career or your business, leaving a review or a 5-star rating over at iTunes would be really fantastic. And also be sure to share these episodes with a friend or with your team. Now, I want you to know that Keys to the Shop offers consulting and coaching for you and your business. Over the years, I've been helping lots of different people either start their coffee bar from scratch or improve their existing coffee bar. Whether you're just starting in the coffee bar world with your own business and need some insights into how to avoid needless mistakes and just start off on the right foot, or you have a business already and you just want to upgrade your operations, your quality. I'm working with people in helping them design their bars, subject to today's episode actually, as well as helping them upgrade their operations for when they're scaling from 1 to 2 stores. And really the crux of it is we want to be able to help you where you are in your specialty coffee retail journey. If you want to reach out and see what that looks like, and if working with Keys to the Shop Consulting is the right fit for you, then just email me, chris@keystotheshop.com. We can set up a free call and see what that might look like, and look forward to connecting with you. Again, that email for Keys to the Shop Consulting, chris@keystotheshop.com. Now, today's episode is brought to you by Prima Coffee. Prima Coffee is one of the world's best specialty coffee equipment suppliers because they curate the best equipment from all over the world and match it perfectly with the needs of their customers. If you're looking to open a new cafe or open a second cafe or just upgrade the equipment that you've got right now, Prima Coffee is an amazing partner to work with in helping you get the right gear. When you go to their website over at prima-coffee.com, you'll see what I mean. Their selection is amazing, and also their resources on their website are amazing as well. They put a lot of work into creating free resources to help you brew better coffee, make latte art, use the equipment well. They're all about setting you up for success in your specialty coffee endeavors. That's why I love working with them, and I recommend that you work with them as well. A really great company and group of people to work with when you're looking for the best equipment and service to go along with that over at prima-coffee.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by the world's leader in plant-based performance beverages. That, of course, is Pacific Foods in their Pacific Barista series. The Barista series has taken the world by storm because the name performance beverage is not just a name, it's actually what it does. It performs excellently on your bar. They develop their range of products, whether that's almond, soy, coconut, rice, hemp, oat, with a lot of feedback from the barista community. They want to design these so that the people using it on the bar are excited to use it, and your customers are excited to drink it. You know, I think if you're looking for the best in plant-based options on your menu, then the Barista series is the perfect fit for you. So if you would go to their website over at pacificfoodservice.com and explore the options, get these in your stores, taste them for yourself, you'll see what I mean. It's really an amazing product, fantastic company, and it shows in each and every cup. So again, visit them at their website, pacificfoodservice.com. And when you think about plant-based beverages, think the Barista series from Pacific. Okay, everybody. So today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what to do before you build your bar. And as I mentioned in the top of the episode, I've worked with lots of clients who are needing to have help with building their bar from the ground up. And these are some of the things that help guide me as I help them build their bars. And so I hope that this is going to be helpful for you as well. You know, one of the reasons that I wanted to do this episode is because there are a lot of coffee bars that have been built that really, after working on the bar, you have to admit, if we had to do it over again, we would have put this here, we wouldn't have had the counter like at that height, or we would have had more bar or less bar. You know, a lot of times when people build their bars, mainly they just think about the image of the bar. They want the bar to look a certain way. But one of the most important things, if not the most important thing about a bar, is that it functions well. because what people are in there for, yes, is ambiance. There's some of that. But it's also, and more importantly, a service. And the service is either helped or hindered by the design of your bar. Of course, we're talking about workflow. We're talking about customer flow as well. And those things and many more are an afterthought. I've worked on some pretty weird bars in my time. And I'm sure in the design phase, people are like, oh, it's going to be cute. We're going to use like recycled doors and we're going to use this strange material. I remember once I was working as a trainer for some wholesale accounts of a roaster I was working for. This company had built their bar out of unfinished limestone. And can you imagine? Unfinished limestone is essentially like a thirsty stone. Anything you get on it immediately stains it. It looked really cool. It was almost like a Flintstone bar, but it functioned terribly. And it was a clear example of somebody thinking a little bit too much about the optics and not about the functionality. So a lot of what we're going to focus on today is about functionality. So that's the first thing that I want to discuss is the idea that if you're getting into building a bar, you have to realize what the bar is there for. It's not just for Instagram. It's not just for you to sit in, look at, and say, this is my coffee bar. Like every day, come in and just bow to your coffee bar and worship the image of your coffee bar. Your coffee bar is there to work for you. And if it doesn't work, that beautiful bar is going to start to look real ugly to you a little bit down the line. So we want to get over the idea that it's just image. It has to do with functionality. Now, one of the keys to functionality is the idea of building your bar for a reason, right? So, I'm building a bar so I can have a coffee bar, Chris. This is why I'm building a bar. Well, okay, but specifically, what is the bar supposed to be? What's its job, right? The bar is there to create drinks. The bar is there to make the menu items. And if you don't have your menu items, and you don't have your menu finished before you start building your bar, you're going to build your bar wrong. Or at least I would say you're going to build your bar in such a way that it makes making your menu harder than it has to be. And every barista who works at a bar where functionality was an afterthought, or the menu was considered after the bar was built, knows that this is the case. So the rule is, start with your menu first. That way, you can look at where you've positioned the equipment and decide whether it makes sense or not to put that there if you're going to be making a number of these menu items. If you're going to have blended drinks, for example, you need to have a blender station. Now, if there's no space for a blender station, but last minute you're like, blenders, we should have blended drinks. Yeah, and we'll put them right here. And you just don't have that in the plans, and it's too late. The bar is built, but now you've crammed the blenders in there, and everyone's just like, oh geez, like there's no place to actually put the blender once it's, done blending. There's no place to put the cups, and nobody thought of this beforehand because we're all so busy trying to just get stuff done, weren't considering getting it done the right way or for the right reasons. And the bar is there again to make your menu. So you need to make the menu first, and then start working on your floor design. Start working on where you're going to put equipment and actually what equipment you're going to need beforehand. This requires you to think about how many people you anticipate serving. So if you have a blender station and you're in a small town, maybe you have one blender. But if you're in a big town and blended drinks are a really popular item, then you're going to need 2 or 3. Who knows? So there's 3 things in this. There's determining what your menu is going to be. Then, what equipment do you need to make those items? And finally, the third thing is, how many pieces of equipment do you need to make that item? Now, for an espresso machine, that might mean choosing between a 2 or a 3 group. That's going to affect how much space you have on your bar. I know you may be limited on how much space you actually have to work with. Somebody who has more space has more flexibility. If you have less space, then you need to get creative with it. But still, the rules apply. You need to figure out your menu, what equipment you need, and how many pieces of that equipment or what capacity that equipment needs to be. That way, you build your bar right from the beginning, and you imagine what it's like to make those drinks. When you're actually making them, it's going to be a lot better. So that's where we start. Next, we're going to consider placing the equipment. So we know what the menu is and how many pieces of equipment we need, etc. But where we put things determines how well we make things. So let's consider that the bar is made up of different stations. So you want to minimize the amount of walking that a barista has to do. Ideally, the rule for me is that every barista behind the bar should be able to pivot to the thing that their role needs to fulfill their job. So let's take, for example, someone who's working at the cash register should hypothetically be able to pivot to serve a coffee, get a pastry, make a tea, get change, prep a cup, and that might be like the minimum list of things. But the bar is designed in such a way that that person can do a lot. If you design your bar so that one person is just stuck doing one thing, then you might be forced to have more people behind the bar just to actualize your menu because the bar is too big and you got to go clear over across the bar to get something you need for a drink because you decided to put the ice machine on, the butt end of the bar where it's the least convenient to get it, but you just ran out of space and you said, well, we'll just put the ice machine there. It'll be fine. And so all that extra walking, it'll eventually lead to too many people behind the bar, maybe, or you just don't put extra people behind the bar and it takes so long to make drinks that should be getting out much faster. So if you know your menu and you know the steps to make the stuff in your menu, imagine, again, visualize what it's like to get an order for an iced vanilla latte. And then if the barista at the register is doing their job, what are the things they need to effectively prepare that cup and that order to give to the barista next to them at the machine? And what is it that barista needs next to them so they can pivot and get the milk, grind the coffee, steam the milk, clean up after themselves, have the alternative milks nearby, etc. There's a bunch of little things that you're going to want the barista to do as well. Now, not everything can be within arm's reach. That's not realistic. But this is the game. This is the goal, is to have stuff close as you can possibly get it. So again, that's kind of the pivot rule. You want to be able to have each barista pivot to the maximum number of things that they are responsible for in their position and create this efficient workflow behind your bar. So when you're looking at the top-down view of your bar and you notice that the ice machine is too far away, you just have to bite the bullet and say, oh, that's not going to work. That's really not going to work. And don't get into that mindset of, well, we worked hard on this and it's too late. It's not that far. It's really not that far. It's only like 5-6 steps. It's fine. It's fine. You have to resist the urge to settle in this stage. If you get all of this stuff out right now and you lean into the process and start that drawing over with the right things in mind, it might suck. Trust me, there's been times when I've had to change designs for clients where it's just like, oh man, we worked so hard on that, but we're going to have to change it. We're not going to just say, oh, well, let's just throw it anywhere. We could, but that wouldn't be right. We need to do the right thing from the beginning so that it works right at the end. And now following that, I would say you have to pay attention to what the customer is going to be looking at. And now I'm not talking so much about optics as I am about cues. So optics to me is like, what material is your bar made of? Is it wainscot? Is it all walnut? Is your machine just so beautiful and so Instagrammable? That's great. That's great. But that doesn't make your bar work better, okay? What makes it work better is if customers clearly know where they order, and they clearly know where to pick up their drinks. That doesn't mean that you have to have a sign, but I err on signs whenever I can. Signs work. #signs work, okay? But beyond that, There's plenty of bars where it's evident by the pastry case, by the menu and where it's placed, and then what's happening in the bar, that there is a place where you order and there's a place where you pick up your drinks. But you need to design that into your bar so you can kind of imagine yourself as a customer walking in and saying, oh, when I walk in, what's the first thing I see? People are going to look typically up and to the right, or they're going to be trying to find where they order. You need to make it easy for them to find that so that they can organize themselves into a mindset that allows them to think about what they're going to order, or else you're going to lose money because people get up to the register. It's already frustrating because they feel out of place in this coffee bar. There's this tension, and then they default to the lowest common denominator, which is, no, I'll just get coffee, or what the most simple thing is, right? The whole point of designing your bar is that you want to set the customer at ease and giving them cues to know where to go and what the process is visually is the first step, because you might be able to greet them when they walk in the door, but you're not going to direct them as soon as they walk in the door. That's what you can do when they're at the register. You say you can pick your drink up at the other end of the bar, but before that, we have to communicate through the design of the bar that there is a sort of an order to things. So you can do that with signs. You can do that with having a well-lit pastry case. There's little things you can do, but it needs to make sense when the customer sees it. Next, in terms of customer flow, I think you really need to focus on what their journey is going to be like between the register and the pickup area. You want that to be pretty seamless and without resistance, okay? You can put up merchandise and stuff like that, but nothing to obstruct them. If they have to scoot their way behind occupied tables and next to customers, it's really awkward. It's not a very good customer flow. You want it to be this nice straight line of ordering. Line up, order, go down the bar, pick up your drink. If they've got to hunt for their beverage, or they got to try to go through this gauntlet of tables and chairs and merchandise, it's just not a good experience, and people just don't like that. So we have to make sure we're paying attention to the customer flow and what the customer is experiencing as a result of what we're building. Now, back behind the bar, I want to mention a couple of other things. One is cleaning, and the other is ergonomics. Cleaning has to do with, okay, are you building things that you can actually pull out from underneath the counter and clean behind? If not, you're just going to be accumulating a bunch of garbage and dirt behind there underneath things. You're not going to have access to them. And if you can't access it, you can't clean it. And if it gets dirty, if you have a spill, it is a real pain in the butt to actually take something out that is not supposed to come out. Believe me, it's really not fun. I would caution you against putting your espresso machine on your refrigerators for this reason. Refrigerators are not supposed to have machines on them, even though they're technically quote unquote worktop. Those are worktop because you can cut vegetables on them. They're not because you can just stack huge pieces of equipment on them. Also, it makes it hard to pull them out. We have an episode about this with Luke Peterson of the maintenance department. It was a whole episode dedicated to fridges and freezers and coolers, which I'm really happy we did that episode. So I'll link to that in the show notes. But the problems that you experience on bar when you're maintaining a bar have everything to do with the fact that nobody thought about pulling this fridge out, or we can't actually access that panel because we literally nailed it in like we were burying it in a coffin. So before you start putting boards up and covering things and putting machines on fridges and whatnot, think about what it would be like to pull that thing out, to access it, to perform maintenance on it of any kind. And then think about how you can make it so that it's easy, okay? This is all, again, based on visualization and forecasting what's definitely going to happen. You want somebody to put another 220 line in because you're going to get an extra piece of equipment. You got to think about that up front. So as many contingencies as you can think of, design it into your bar. So in ergonomics, the main thing I want to talk about is the height of your counters. Really, I feel like the heights of your counters will depend on what's being done on them. I'm a big fan of having a lower espresso bar than other worktop surfaces. Now, it might mean that my worktop is like 30 inches or 31 inches. That might be low for somebody. But if I'm just tamping and I need the downward pressure anyway, and I'm just putting portafilters into grinders and grinding coffee, then it's fine. I want basically as many people on my staff as possible to be able to have a 90-degree elbow to lock in a portafilter. That's not possible, though, because everybody's going to have a different height that works for you. Basically, you cannot achieve perfection unless you go to insane levels, which, like Intelligentsia opened a place in Venice a while ago that had hydraulic lifts on their espresso machines. And depending on the barista that was working that station, they were able to raise or lower the espresso machine. I've seen people have little platforms for the shorter employees to be able to step on, to be able to work well behind the bar. So the key is, don't make it too tall, don't make it too short, kind of put it in the middle there, and definitely don't just base it on your own opinion. So if you are like a tall owner and you say, well, I want this bar, it's my bar, so I'm just going to design it the way I would like to work on it, everyone's going to hate you. Okay, that's just not good enough, because eventually you're not going to be the one working the bar, and you're going to have probably mostly people that are shorter than you working the bar, unless you're only hiring tall people, which would be illegal. So you need to meet in the middle here. I can't tell you exactly what height that is for you. Again, I tend to err on the lower side of things, but I will say that the rule for me is if there's a lot of work being done on a counter and it's not just there to host a machine, like the espresso machine, there's a lot of work being done on that. Is there a place where you're bagging coffee? Is there a place where you're stocking coffee? There's a lot of hands-on work with the baristas. That stuff needs to be really well thought out and probably low enough that baristas can work with a 90-degree on their elbow, so they're not hunched over if they're tall, and they're not putting their elbows up in the air like a bird if they're shorter. So those are just some guidelines on the ergonomics of your coffee bar. Now, the last thing I'm going to mention here might be a no-brainer for some of you, but for others, I've seen it happen where bars are designed and then the health department comes in and they say, no, you need a 3-bay sink here. You can't just rely on the kitchen sink. You have to have a 3-bay on your bar. 3-bay sinks are huge, even the small ones. The small ones are basically the width of a 4-group espresso machine. And you weren't planning on that. We should have been planning on that. We have to figure out what the regulations say. Inviting the health department in the early stages is always a good idea. So you get the information you need that you're going to need a 3-bay sink in there, and then you can make them happy and they can give you the approval to actually open your bar. And you're not scrambling trying to figure out how you're going to reconfigure everything to fit a 3-bay sink on the back bar. And lastly, in addition to the health department, you need to make sure that you're complying with the ADA accessibility guidelines for counter heights and also for the amount of space between counters and entry and exit into the bar. And just like the health department, you don't want to be told after you've gone through all the design process that you need to fix this, and it encroaches on your cafe space and it moves your displays and everything else. This needs to be just part of your design right from the get-go, so you make it simple on yourself. So in all of these things that I've just mentioned about designing your bar, again, the most important thing is that your bar functions well. When you're at your busiest, you'll know that you built this the right way because you're going to have a seamless operation. Again, this is all about forecasting what you're going to need from your bar and what the bar is built for. It's built for making your menu, making it efficient, having a workflow behind the bar that makes it easy to make those items and easy for customers to order and pick up those items. And once you go through all of these practical steps and do the hard work of making sure you're within regulations and you've forecasted the amount of business you need to accommodate and how many pieces of equipment you need, all of this stuff, once you've done this and you've got your bar built, practically speaking, you can create a beautiful facade to make it look amazing. But if you just start by dreaming about the facade and focus on that, my fear that has been shown to be not an unfounded fear is that the functionality of your bar will become an afterthought that really will make you wish you could have done it over. And I hope that some of the things that I've shared here from my experience in helping my clients design their coffee bars, as well as working on plenty of coffee bars myself, both good and bad, that helps you in your journey. So with that is the end of our episode. And if you want to reach out to me with any questions, comments, or feedback, or you're interested in working with Keys to the Shop Consulting, you can email me at chris@keystotheshop.com. I always love hearing from Keys to the Shop listeners. Stay tuned this week, Founder Friday. We are talking with the great David Morris of Delanos Coffee Roasters. So you're not going to want to miss that really cool conversation and deep dive into Delanos history and development. So stay tuned for that this Friday. And again, thank you so much for joining me. And as always, I hope that this episode has truly given you keys to the shop.